Yo! Video games.
So here's some I wanted to do. I had this idea for like way pre-COVID, and this is gonna be like a big test run, I guess you could say, where I thought about it when I was talking to Matt and Wooly, where I know like Matt is a huge Matt McMuscles is a huge Godzilla fan, and Wooly was a big reboot fan. And I know enough about Godzilla to know what Godzilla is. I know very...
Reboot the 3D animated series from
Correct.
Like... Wow, that's a deep cut. Damn.
Yeah, and that I don't know anything about. I know it exists, and I know it looks weird.
I actually watched that when I was younger too. That was a show that ends up being way better than you think it would be. That's what I was like, because it starts off as like a regular like every episode is like his own thing, like an episode of Scooby-Doo with very little continuity, and then suddenly it just like shit hits the fan, and the show gets like fucking crazy, and like the main character Bob becomes like Jesus Christ the Messiah. It gets fucking crazy. I'm like, what in the hell? It was actually kind of fun though.
yeah, like, and I know it goes weird and goes places, so I was actually kind of curious, maybe like someday if because we were ever talking or ever like doing anything like, hey, sell me on this, just sell me on this idea. So this is a little different where it's like I have played this game. I've played about 9 hours of this game, and I got through the first area, first opening mine palace, if you will, and that was just kind of it. Now there's a lot of people that I know that really, really like these games. And they like a lot of the same stuff I like. So I'm kind of sitting here thinking like, what am I not getting here? Like, what am I missing? Now I'm not going to ask you to try to like. For me, it's like I'm not going to try to make a discussion about this like on Kingdom Hearts, because I think anyone who's sane who still loves Kingdom Hearts, they're just in it for fun. They just like seeing Disney worlds. They're kind of along for the ride. Like no one's gonna sit there and try to tell me like
Yeah, we had a good talk about that before, where you almost in a similar vein of like what do I see in Persona 5? Well, what is up with you in Kingdom Hearts? We sort of had that same sort of conversation.
Well, with that, it was kind of like well, Kingdom Hearts, that was a little bit more briefly where it's like, okay, 3 was kind of like this quote unquote ending point. For the story or whatever, right? And I'm like, okay, so what are you looking forward to in 4 at this point? So it was a slightly different in that aspect, right? Where I was kind of like, okay, so what are people looking forward to now? But with this game, God, like I played this, and then for an April Fool's joke, I actually played
Persona 4 Golden.
Persona 4, and I actually tried to see how long I could play that. And I actually didn't think 4 was as good as 5, but I know some people kind of like vary wildly between 3, 4, and 5, or which one they like generally prefer, right? So it's not really.
I think generally the thought process for a lot of people between the games really is like, which one did you play first? That's usually a lot of times like, or did you grow up with the game? Because a lot of people are just super nostalgic for it. But to be honest, I'm definitely in the mindset of I think every game has just gotten progressively better. Like Persona 3 was like pretty crazy, and then Persona 4 was like even better, and then Persona 5 is like, to me, this game is like the perfection of the formula in a lot of ways. It's not perfect. I mean, it's still not perfect. I still have my issues with it. To be fair though, the funny thing is you're actually playing Royal, which is like the updated version. I have actually not played this version of the game.
Well, neither have I until right now, but it was literally just because I tried to see if I could get a cloud save file from my Persona 5 vanilla, but it doesn't save to the cloud apparently. I played it on PS4, but like it just didn't have anything, like no cloud data, so I'm like, don't know what's up with that, don't know what's up there. So yeah, just sort of like, okay, I guess that's not happening. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just play Royal or whatever, right? Or at least just
no, Ali.
he's
He's talking about he wasn't trying to transfer his save over to Royale. He was trying to get his just save for the original game, but
yeah, because I literally was just gonna throw the disc. I did throw the disc in and I installed it on my PS5, but they're like, we have like they were Gandalf, like we have no memory of this place. So, so yeah, so for this game in particular, like I get the sort of gist of what's going on here with like the setup and whatever of the game. So for me, it's a lot more of like, okay, no, I don't want to sit here and like debate. I don't want to argue. I just want to be sold on this. Because I think you said this was your favorite game that came out in 2017.
Yeah, this is my favorite. This is my favorite game of the 2010s to 2020. That was like I read this is my highest. This is my favorite game of the decade. Like, so
yeah,
it's high up there.
Right, and that's counting Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, God of Wars, you know, you name it, you know, like you name whatever other big game that came out in the 2010s.
Yeah, I mean, and those games are, you know, brilliant. I mean, to be fair, this is definitely a personal thing. I mean, those are, you know, I think, yeah, Mario Odyssey is a fucking incredible game, but this game, like, to this point, I mean, I had played up through Persona 3 and 4. So this one just sort of was just the perfect culmination of everything I feel like the Persona team has sort of been working on to now. Just like they just pulled it off so fucking great here that I don't know. It's actually gonna be hard for me to even imagine them actually making a game that is like as like polished and insanely stylish as this one is. Like, that's why I'm so curious where they go from here, because it does feel like almost like, God, like they've hit a ceiling. But but yeah, like I'm not gonna try. I mean, and I know this. I'm not gonna try to like to make you like this game.
Right.
Like that is not my purpose here. I'm like I already know a lot of the things that you like, the things that you don't like, and I know that this game already in and of itself checks a lot of things that you do not like about a lot of games. So, but at the very least, I can help you to understand maybe why others do.
Yeah, because to me, it's not about like why is this better than that. It's not about a better than or greater than. It's just like, okay, like why is Persona so great?
Yeah. So I guess like right at the outset of like, well, what like made Persona like interesting and unique in the first place? Like even basically from 3. I'm not telling you right now, I have not played Personas 1 and 2. Those games are very different, and they're actually much closer to what a Shin Megami Tensei game was. Like that was like I think there were still elements of like the social stuff, but it was much more downplayed, and it was like the games felt like they were like spin-offs of Shin Megami Tensei than they were like at this point where Persona is like its own thing, right?
Yeah. And they were spin-offs, like to my knowledge.
They were,
like, Persona is a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series.
It 100% is. It's like it's gotten so far in the future, in the point where Persona has become such a like, and honestly, a lot of ways has now overshadowed what Shin Megami Tensei was.
Oh, for sure.
Because everyone goes back and plays like, yeah, everyone's going and playing the new Shin Megami Tensei game. They're like, why can't you like, you know, socialize with people and do this stuff? And I'm like, that's really stupid, because that has never been what Shin Megami Tensei's been about. It's like where Persona is about the like specifically characters and relationships with the characters and all of that. Shin Megami Tensei is almost kind of like what Nier Automata was, where it's like, this is you affecting the world. Like, this is like, it is a much grander scope, like universe, like world directing kind of story that is not like you're like who you are, and the story doesn't really matter, right? It is about like the forces beyond your control. It is about you know, just like the demons and the darkness and all. Like, I've never been a huge like Shin Megami Tensei like person. I haven't played a lot of their games, so I can't like go too much into it. But even I know, like, yeah, it's like a totally different kind of style game. So if you're like going in expecting Persona, you're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, with Shin Megami 5, right? Especially,
right,
because that's like the newest one.
And I remember seeing that a lot of people like say that about it, and I'm like, you guys, like, what the fuck? Like that, which just shows me like people have now gotten to that point where people like forgot that what Shin Megami Tensei was, and that like it did not come from Persona. Persona came from it, and then became its own thing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, but at its like heart, what made like, and I think it started in Persona 3. What made Persona sort of stand out was the fact is it was basically the combination of two genres. One is it is the life sim genre plus like the JRPG genre, like mashed together. You're essentially living a Japanese life as generally a high school student, and going through a lot of life sim elements as well as visual novel elements, and where you're like forming relationships with people. And then alongside it, you have this dungeon crawling adventure that involves like collecting and specializing in personas. Which are, you know, demons in Shin Megami Tensei, but they just call them personas here, because they represent like aspects of characters' personalities, and all the people in the world that you meet are all incarnations or representations of the different arcana of the tarot cards, and and that sort of ties into their character and to personas that you can then fuse to create new ones, and it's really cool. Like I think already at the outset of why that's so interesting, like that blending of genres was so like, what the fuck, this is kind of crazy. It's really cool to go from living your Japanese, you know, fantasy life to then hopping into this crazy fantastical dungeon, right? And going from like what's relatively normal and I'm just going around Japan doing stuff, and then to battling demons and monsters and personas and running around with your sword and smacking shit, you know, while crazy hip-hop music plays in the background or something. So so that in itself is like a big part of it. A lot of people, and myself included, I really like that slice of life of Japan, that kind of feeling that you are like living in this culture, because it is like, and maybe it's, I almost, part of me, I've always wondered this actually myself. I'm like, part of me always wonders like, is this exciting for the Japanese as it is for us? And I almost think it probably isn't, right? Like, I mean, I think maybe they focus more on just the fact that, oh, I'm living in my high school days again or something, you know, like, because the Japanese, that apparently once you graduate from high school, you're just never, it's never gonna get any better.
See, I was gonna say, like, they must love it because they keep fucking making anime about about it. But like, from what I understand, like, what is kind of generally considered like what our college years are, because in America, it's like college is the best time of your life because you're just partying, you're going to, you know, you're kind of like balancing work, school life, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're rich and white or whatever, like, you know, you're definitely partying and just going to school and just like floating by. Yeah. But what we consider our college, like, you know, free-form college years is what they kind of consider their high schoolers. Because to my knowledge, I'm no Japanese expert or anything. To my knowledge, you actually apply for high schools, like kind of like how we apply for colleges, even.
Yeah.
In a sense, where it's like, you know, you can go to like more prestige colleges, you know, in Japan, possibly, you know, or not colleges, sorry, high schools. Like, high school, being accepted and going to certain high schools is considered better than others, so to speak, in that sense. So, and apparently, that's when they get their first real taste of, like, freedom, like adult freedom, where it's like, okay, you're now responsible for going to school, and you start getting your first job, and like when you're going to like elementary and junior high, like, it's very strict, like, you don't have any choice, it's just kind of like, this is what you do, and you know. But when you get into high school, it's like, okay, this is when they start like letting you have a little bit of freedom, and it's when you're in high school, you know you're not, any job you get as a high schooler is not going to be a quote-unquote career level job, right?
Right.
They don't like, to my understanding is like they don't really have that kind of thing where it's like, okay, if you're in America and one of the actual things you can still do, say you get a job at, say, like an In-N-Out, which pays pretty well, but you work your way up at an In-N-Out, you could become a manager at In-N-Out, and you can be living very, very well. Like, you will be very well taken care of, because In-N-Out is a properly run company.
Right.
But in Japan, there's no sort of like, there's no delusion, there's no ladder climbing for, say, like an arcade crane game operator or whatever, right? Like, you know, you get these, because you get these high school jobs which are just evening jobs, and then, you know, the point of going to high school and then maybe college in Japan is you go and you get a entry-level career job, and then when you go into that job field, like outside of high school, your life is fucking over. That, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Like, once you're in the sort of, I've graduated high school, I've become an adult, I have no life. It's get a job, work till you fucking die.
Is there not like, and to be honest, I'm not super savvy about this, is there no like college life kind of like thing for the Japanese?
There is, but apparently it's very much like not the same. It's high school. High school is the college life. Kind of there. You know, like,
okay.
You know, you get your Suica, sorry. You get your Suica traveling card, you know, like I have one.
Yeah.
And, you know, because if you live in Tokyo, you have absolutely zero reason to drive, personally. Like, there's absolutely no reason at all for you to drive. So you're taking the fantastic public transport system they got there, and, you know, you get your first real money, and you just sort of like, you have a little bit more autonomy, or sort of like, it's okay to sort of like splurge on fun stuff in high school. But once you get out of high school, you get into college, work until you're fucking dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It would explain why Japanese is so enthralled by the high school days, you know? And
yeah.
Because I definitely wouldn't say, I mean, we are in America to some extent, but it's more like, I don't know, like, it's kind of different, I feel like. And I feel like we still have that, like, I mean, like, because to be honest, even I will say, like, I definitely have a strong desire to see an older group for, like, the next game. I would really like to see that. I don't know if it'll happen. It might always just be the high school days, but
I think there was some statement about it, and there's like, Persona's always high school, like that is part of Persona's identity is the high school setting.
Yeah, maybe so then.
But which part of me is like, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, obviously.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of see that. I have my own opinions on what I would love to see a Persona game actually do, you know. But like, I guess really like unless again I'm not.
Looks like no one's home.
Is just the idea of being, you know, being a youth, being one of the youths in Japan. Is that really just like the appeal? Like, I get to be a high schooler in Japan.
To be fair,
Yeah.
I think for some people that is. I think actually, funny enough, that I think that, just based on now what you're telling me, then I think probably for Japan that actually is the case. I think that's probably why the Japanese do like it. That's why I was like, dude, I wonder if they find it as interesting. They probably do, because like you said, they love that. They love the high school days, and that's probably why, because it is the last bastion of freedom before they, you know, say goodbye to the rest of their life, I guess, you know?
Pretty much.
So yeah, that for them, that's what the Japanese generally probably like, then, is the fact that they get to sort of like get a fantastical version of the high school days, where you get to do everything that you once did or never got to do. And for us, I think generally, and I can't speak for everybody, but I mean, I think what I've seen is the general trend, and is definitely how I feel, is much less about the actual high school aspect of it, and it's more about living in Japan. And having like a life in Japan, meeting all of these people, and having very different, like, you know, cultural and traditional standards for all these things. It's really cool. Like, and I love going about the city and meeting people and going to the shops and doing things and buying things that are like in a regular life sim game would be like, oh, I need this food or something to sustain myself or something, you know, if I had like a hunger or a thirst meter or some shit. But in here they make it into the RPG elements. It's like you get items that heal you, that give boosts to your party members, that act as equipment for everybody, and that is where again it ties back to the RPG elements. But it's like I still feel this need and this desire to explore all different stores. So even if it like I like that the game gives you a bunch of different places you can go to, and not all of them are necessarily like, oh man, I gotta go there, but I like that I have this feeling of like I can go and find some stuff. You can get some deals on certain days, you know, like there actually are like deals off during certain things that you can get items on sale, and feeling like this is like a real city, that real lived in place. But
the cozy factor, even
for sure, absolutely. And I mean, to be fair, there is like a very much the life sim aspect of it is, yeah, you are definitely going to be seeing a lot of the city very frequently, and a lot of the same parts again and again, because you are living your day-to-day life there. And I think that's part of, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's part of one of the reasons why you really kind of starts to grind on you a bit, where it starts like it's like you're just seeing the same shit every day again and again. And
like it's kind of twofold. If I, you know, hey, what's up, Flair? It's kind of it's twofold, where it's like I really love a journey aspect of storytelling. I love that a lot, but it's also the fact that like there's a timer, and then if it's late, if it's the evening, you know, if it's late at night or whatever, right? The cat tells you can't leave. It's too late. You need to go to bed. So it's kind of like I have chores and I have like a curfew, and the game is basically just constantly like telling you what you can't do.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's silly because the thing is like because I enjoy some Western RPGs a whole lot. Like some of them I actually do enjoy, and then there's a lot I don't. Where like it's funny because I almost say like it's almost too freeform. Saying a lot of like some of the biggest Western RPGs I don't get into because I'm just kind of like I have no direction. I feel kind of like, you know, it feels kind of like aimless. It feels sort of like floaty and janky and yada yada yada. But I also love it where it's just kind of like, hey, here's this game, you can just jump across these rooftops at night just because, like, whatever, like, right. You know, and then who knows, maybe you'll find like, you know, like a hidden barrel up, you know, up on some guy's balcony because you know you goofed around and you just decided, you know, to run around at night and just hey I found something here, right? So I think like a big kind of like a sort of like gnawing thing for me was just that like I hate like time limits. Like time limits to me feel like a relic of the past for the most part. Like I get it, there's a whole game design around it, and you can design games around it, and there's plenty of great games that are designed. I mean we're all addicted to Vampire Survivors currently, and it's technically a time limit because when you hit 30 minutes, you know, like a Grim Reaper comes out to, you know, to kill you. But then it's also so like you have to like build up your thing within that time. But it feels like a little different because it's like, oh, I'm working up to beat the clock kind of thing. In Persona, it's like, no, you reach the end of the day. You've reached the end of the day. You have one thing to do, and that's go to bed because the cat told you to go to bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it for me, I kind of it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's like this game where you live your life, and it's like, okay, wow, that's really cool. But no, like you're really living a high school life. Like you have to go to bed by a certain time of night. You can't go out. You can't just wander the streets of Tokyo at night. You know, you can't just go wherever, do whatever, right? You know, like no,
Yeah.
you're really living this like you're an actual person with the same restrictions of a teenager.
Yeah, so the big part of these games, and that is like, again, coming back to the life sim element in some ways, is that it is also a time management kind of game where, yeah, I mean, you're right, there is a time limit, but not everything progresses time. Like you can still run around the city. It's not like there's like, oh well, you ran out of time, you gotta get out of here. Like you literally go anywhere in the city and talk to anyone and buy anything, and you could literally stand outside for 8 hours and time won't go by until you do a specific action, like hang out with your friends or do a school activity or decide to do homework or like go to your TV and perform a game that, again, feeds back into like, you know, even your like social stats that let you access and do different things tie back to making you stronger for the dungeon crawling and stuff, you know. But like it is like you basically, for every portion and time of the day, you get one action generally. I think there's some things that like help alleviate that, or like you also can, like, as time goes on and you make connections with people, they give you additional things that allow you to essentially game the system in a way. Like if I remember right, I think one of I think Kawakami, the teacher, she can like she can do something for you that helps save you time. I think she gets like items for you or something. It's been a fucking while since I played this.
Well,
I remember she just
there's something
for you.
We're neither one of us are familiar with. Is apparently, the stuff in Royal is very sensitive to when you do it, and you can very easily miss out on things related to the Royal part of the content. From what I understand, like you have to be like doing things throughout the year, because like every persona is like during a calendar or school year. Yeah. And if you're not on top of your game of doing things specifically when you need to do them, you'll miss out on some of the new content in Royal.
Huh.
Apparently.
I have no idea about that. I'll tell you right now. And I mean, this is coming from, I guess, I someone who played 3 and 4. When I played 3 and 4, I was never able to do everything. Like, I actually, like, even those games when I was like trying to see all the social links and everything you can do, I couldn't. I would always get to the end of the game and I was like, fuck, I ran out of time. I didn't do it. And to me, like, I don't feel like super gypped, because again, that's part of the element of the game, is knowing how to manage your time. And how, like, knowing, okay, what did I do today? Was that the best use of my time or not? Now, Persona 5 is, at least the original one, was by far the easiest in that regard. I had like a month of literally nothing to do because I had done everything before like the final dungeon, and I had like literally a month, and I was like, well, what the fuck do I do? So like, it's way easier to do in this game, just at least in the original. But that's definitely like, yeah, like that feeling. And I will say the beginning of the game, and that's like, and I say the beginning, and it's like the first like 10 to 15 hours. It is limiting. It is. The game basically does what a lot of JRPGs do, where they very slowly dole out new gameplay mechanics and more freedom and stuff. Because like eventually at some point, yeah, you can go out at nighttime. You won't be limited to just back at the house and staying and sleeping and having your cat tell you to go to sleep. And that, I mean, the funny thing is the whole thing with the cat thing, and that was so like, a lot of people did also feel that exact same way as you, and got like fucking pissed by it. Like, it never really bothered me that much. I just found it kind of funny, because like I guess I'm kind of used to it by this point. That like yeah, because you're just gonna have to go to sleep because fucking story needs you to be, you know. But like people made a meme of that, of like Morgana telling the protagonist to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And yeah, that like seriously, that became such a huge like long running meme for it. But at some point, like generally that will stop once you get to like certain points where like, and then the game starts to open up and you can like actually go out at night and do stuff and like freely leave when you want to. You still have to go. I mean, you still end the day. You do have to go upstairs and go to sleep. You can't stay up all night and like, you know, just like run around Tokyo and like fuck hookers or something, you know? Like,
yeah, and it's like for me, it's like I'm not really so much interested in the sort of I don't actually. See, the main thing is I don't actually enjoy GTA. You know, I actually kind of enjoyed the Yakuza games to an extent, because mostly just because of how like batshit insane they get.
Yeah, fucking crazy they are. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, and those are not GTA games. It's funny because I always have to like argue this with like, like Steve or whatever. I'm like, they're nothing like GTA. They're like, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing alike. Except they're both in a city, I guess, kind of. You're in a tiny square of blocks in Yakuza. Yeah. You're not doing anything. Yeah, I actually don't generally enjoy GTA games because, generally speaking, roaming around like a modern cityscape, especially if it's an American city like New York or LA, it's like, bro, I live in LA and LA sucks. I've never visited New York, but kind of whatever, just meh feelings about it in general. So it's just like,
I mean, and that makes makes a lot of goddamn sense. Because here's the thing, like I did enjoy GTA 5 to an extent because it was literally California, you know. And I've never been to California. I've never actually like, so to actually literally just like, you know, walk across like some of like the, I mean, it just literally, it's not even like they're being coy. It's not like, oh, this is a fictional. No, this is literally just California.
It's a parody.
Yeah. And it's like, if you live there though, like, because I lived for many years, I don't anymore, but I lived near DC. So, and I already know what DC looks like. I've been there a billion times. People will come from the other side of the fucking world to see DC and see all the stuff that's there. But I find it insanely boring at this point because I've fucking seen it all, and it's not. It's like, it's just like whatever, right? If you live there, it stops. The exotic nature of it goes away.
Yeah.
So I get that. Yeah. Like if it's like, I mean, if it was like a sim that was like the area that I live in currently, I would probably not be all that excited about it either. So,
and another thing I will push back a little bit on it's not really Persona's fault, but it's because like Yakuza's the same way. You get this tiny slice because like I've been to Tokyo now, and it's really cool, but it's fucking annoying. I saw probably less than half of the city of Tokyo in the 11 days I was there.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me because like there's so much you could do. Like this, like a Persona game could be enormous. You could travel, you could have a ton of like huge varied landscapes, not landscapes but just areas to go, but like you don't really. You have like your city block and your school and like your train station, and then everything else is like sort of the mementos, like like the dungeon, either the mind palaces or like the not self. I was gonna say self-guided, but the procedurally generated. Centerpiece dungeon. Unless there's something I'm missing here, but you don't go to a lot of different spots in Tokyo in the game.
You're generally not like you can at certain points. And
I know there's like a beach episode. I know that's a thing. Or like you go on like a field trip.
There's a beach moment, but like there are moments where they're like you can essentially travel to this location, but even then you're not like freely roaming around it. It's more like you get there and you're like, all right, there's an activity here that we can do, whether it's like praying at the shrine or doing like koi fishing or bringing a girl out on a date to this one restaurant somewhere or something. And and then outside of those, the areas that you can move around in, which are like the area outside the cafe, the Shibuya area where you do all your shopping, going down the subways and stuff, where you can also run into like additional people and like, yeah, I mean, like you're not really going like everywhere.
Yeah.
I guess my question then to you then, it's like, okay, so let's say you could just go like fucking anywhere and do anything. How does that then tie back into the dungeon crawling mechanic? How does it come back there without it bloating the game?
Bloating it, right? Yeah. Because I think you kind of end up in that point where it just kind of becomes like, well, for me to point out, like the Spirit Crucible, and that's the worst part of that game.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a
by far.
like, I mean. Would I like that? Yeah, I would, because I actually think that is a cool idea to run around the city, and I've to really like freely go anywhere. I go fucking steal a car. No, I'm just kidding. No, like, I mean, to be fair, you know what that is? Then that really does end up becoming more like Yakuza, right?
Right.
And Judgment. That is, and to me, it's like that level of like of what you do, because you're going in. That is truly like the Japanese like. Adult life. I almost would say, yeah, if you're not down for Persona and like the high school stuff and the dungeon crawling and stuff there, it's like, and you just want like a slice of life of Japan plus, you know, brawling and
I wonder if, because here's the thing, I look at this game, I'm looking at it now, and I looked at it for the first time. It's so stylish. It is like the most stylish game ever made. Like,
hell yeah.
The user interface, the artwork's great. Like everything is just so fucking cool. Like it just looks cool. Everything issues about it is like stylish and cool. In that aspect, I gotta give it up. I have to. I would be crazy to say otherwise. But like. Because like, you're right. I think if you did try to make the game like, oh, we'll make it like this, like that, I'm not even so much against the school setting so much, because like somehow you and some mods of mine, Al, I believe, convinced me to play 13 Sentinels, which is a high school setting game partially.
Yeah, partially.
Partially, but it just gets so crazy and it goes so nuts, and I think maybe for me, I don't know what the deal was necessarily, but it was like, oh, you're going into the mind palace of, say, like the creeper gym coach,
yeah,
and you're basically gonna go in there to get him fired so he can stop creeping and creeping on the girls and like overworking the guy athletes and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so it's like Inception. In that
pretty
sense.
much, yeah. It is very much an Inception kind of thing.
And then like I think the main baddie of the game is a mayor, like a corrupt politician or something.
Yeah, he's a guy who's trying to become like the leader of the country essentially. So
plans to be prime minister.
Yeah, essentially.
Right. So make sure you keep it up to me, I'm like, okay, so it's like a visual novel. It's a slice of life, kind of like really like lets you live out like the life is. And then you're gonna do this Inception style stuff to like take down corrupt teachers, and then eventually you're gonna take down like this corrupt mayor. And I'm like, what's up? To me, I'm like, I don't fucking care. like to me, it kind of comes off as like, that's it. Like that, but it's like maybe I'm missing something here where it's just like it doesn't need to be grand, it doesn't need to be like this.
Well, I mean,
if you wanted the big grand thing, you could go to Shin Megami Tensei where it's like the world blows up or whatever, and it's like completely post-apocalyptic or whatever.
I mean, to be fair, I mean that is the And every Persona game is like this.
Right.
Every Persona game is like it, right? Where like you get to the final boss, quote unquote, and it's like it is usually just a guy, but he's a crazy psycho piece of shit or something, and he like harnesses the power of. I mean, funny. I'll tell you right now. I think the guy you're talking about, his name is Shido. His final boss like form is like is the funniest fucking shit. Like I love it because he just turns into this crazy roid monster. He's just so fucking jacked, and he's got like, and he starts off the fight where he's got like these like braces on himself, and then he breaks them, and he gets all fucking red and juiced up, and he's like, this shit fucking made me laugh my ass off.
I had heard it was sort of like a sort of like a bit of a shade throwing it at Abe, their prime minister Shinzo Abe.
Oh yeah, oh for sure.
I had heard that. I mean, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, he does. He literally turns into Senator Armstrong. It's actually kind of amazing. He's like just gets all fucking jacked up. But every game, like after that boss, there's always like, oh wait, it's still going, and it turns out, wait, the great evil is actually God. It's like essentially, it's like a god that we have to like defeat, and then that ends up becoming the central theme as to, well, then why was everyone the way it was, and why is everything the way it is in this game or in this world that's been set up here, and it always ties back to some greater cosmic being that is affecting everything, and that ends up, I mean. It's like ends up like every other JRPG. Yes, you fucking gotta go kill God, So, and it's like it's been done to death, but the spectacle of it, and a lot of times the designs for just like the characters and how they handle it, because the themings, every game has its own like major theming that is like, and usually whatever that final boss ends up being ties into the game's major theme that is like spread throughout it, and I'm trying to remember specifically what Persona 5's was at the end. It was I'm trying to remember exactly what the fucking it's been a while. It was I'm thinking of Persona 4. Persona 4, so I remember, was like people not was it turning away from the truth or something? Yeah, it was the guy. Yeah, it's right. It was the God of Control was Persona 5. Persona 4 was where the fog came in, Nyx, and starts fucking up everybody's like desires. I think like their actual like drive to do anything. Yeah, and Persona 3 was the embodiment of people's negative energy. Yeah, to end it all. Right.
Why are the gods so concerned about these little small areas and pockets of Japan?
That's a good question. To be fair, it actually does seemingly spread beyond that, but it always just, I mean, everything happens in Japan,
Yeah,
that's what the Japanese believe too.
Well, yeah. Well, Hollywood believes aliens are going to come straight for LA every time.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, no, Izanami is Persona 4. That's right. So there's always like, it always goes, bigger and fucking godlike in that regard.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, well, why do you care, right, about the bad guys and any of the things that are happening here? And I say that, well, a lot of the characters that you come across here tie into the major characters that you meet. Like, you meet a character named Yusuke, who's I love this character. I wish I could date this character, but the game doesn't fucking let me. And that's probably that's actually one of my big critiques against the game. Doesn't let you date any, doesn't let you do any like gay relationships with anybody, and I don't fucking get it.
Well, the director's a bit a bit antiquated, let's say.
And there was some stuff, I don't know if this was fixed in the Royal version. There was definitely a few moments in the original version where it was like some of the characters were acting like these like gay guys, and the gay guys were like ridiculously like over the top, and it was treated like a joke, and I was like, okay. I don't know if they got that fixed or not, but and again, that's one of my critiques against the game.
Yeah.
Was it fixed? Anyway, Yusuke, one of the main guys you go is this guy who was basically an art forger, right? But he's tied into Yusuke's character as well, so you get sort of invested because Yusuke is invested. You get invested with Kamoshida similarly because An and her friend were tied very closely to him, and to be fair, you're going to the same school that this guy's at, so it's sort of like you feel his presence everywhere, at least towards the start of the game. And throughout the game too, like Shido, you hear the main guy Shido, you hear about him like constantly throughout the game. People are referencing him. I mean, he's literally also Shido is tied to your own character because he's the one that got you arrested in the first place. So that's kind of why you're like that you sort of are supposed to sort of care. And the whole point again is like is you fighting the powers that be to fight the system to like in a real way. Like this one probably more than any of the previous Personas even is very much of like we are fighting the system to make our own freedom, to do to find our way in life, right? Like we're gonna decide our fate and not have it decided by, you know, these fucking dickheads who are in power. Yeah, fight the system.
I have to kind of comment a little bit on the fact that it's like in the game there's like this copy paste of all the Japanese businessmen. You know, they walk all hunched over in like these lines, like little like almost, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And I get it, and that's kind of funny, but that's literally the people who are making the game.
I know, right?
So
I know it's I'm hoping it takes some self-awareness. I don't know.
like there's a little part of me that's just kind of like, because we do it here too. You know, we Pink Floyd's The Wall and what have you.
Yeah.
You know, we're constantly commenting on like sort of like, you know, the improper work-life balance and sort of like, you know, brick in the wall, you know, machine in the cog in the machine kind of aspect of our own, quote unquote, you know, lives or whatever. And it is kind of funny to almost see that where it's like so many of these things are so, you know, teenage based or whatever, and it's like, yes, we're gonna fight the system, and I'm like, and you know, all the oppressed, like, you know, robot like adults, I'm like, those are the people making the game, because they got out of high school or college or whatever, and like they applied to Sega or Atlas and got the job, and like they just plugged away at it. So
yep, pretty much.
So it's almost depressing, you know, in a way, to think about that. But it is nice when you do hear about there are people making strides and changes and whatever. It's yeah, I mean, everywhere in the world, you know, there's definitely something screwed up with the way the work life economy is going. So
yeah, for sure.
So
I mean,
yeah,
I guess in some ways maybe you can see this expression, right, that does like sort of paint that like both the ordinary and the extraordinary in this way can be sort of seen like, you know, I mean, shining a light on themselves, but also like being able to escape in their own way, you know, like making this insane, like crazy fiction where, oh my God, I'm dressed up like a goddamn superhero, you know, using my grappling hook and flying around and like using my magic powers to change the shitty world, you know? So, you know, it's cool. Like I love I mean, and you said it, like, I mean, this game, even in my opinion, way more than Persona 3 and 4, like, and you notice it too. If you go back from Persona 5 to Persona 4, like you did, you notice, you're like, wow, like it is not like Persona 4 has no style, but it is like Persona 5 has so much style. It's like every square inch of it, every menu, every time you pause the game, every like fucking encounter, you jump onto a dude's face and it seamlessly switches where he'll rip his goddamn mask off to the fight, like just seamlessly, like you don't even realize you just went through like an actual like battle transition. Like every fucking square inch of Persona 5 is so meticulously stylized that like, and it never, at least never to me, ever got to the point where I'm like, I can't tell what the fuck's going on. Cause like, that's like a fine line, right? Of being like so stylish that it is illegible, right? Like that, like, I feel like they could easily have fallen down that way, but they didn't. Somehow they managed to keep it like all like, legible and understandable and cohesive. And similarly, I mean, I hope you agree with this, but I mean, I think the music in this game is phenomenal.
Oh, I think it's great too. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's another one of those things where it's like, I think you can't deny how appealing, how stylish the game is, but I think you also can't deny that, like, the music is very, very good for what it is. The only argument against the music for say, like, oh, was this the best soundtrack of the year it came out? And I'd be like, if we're counting 2017, I say no, because as good as this music is, it follows one kind of genre of music. Does it very well, knows what it is, does it very well, but there were other games in 2017 that had a much larger, more varied soundtrack. That
I would be hard pressed to, like that. I actually don't know. You could probably put a gun to my head, and I don't know if I would be like, yo, Nico, right? Persona 5 is way better than Xenoblade 2. Fucking say it, you bitch. And I would, like, in terms of a soundtrack, and I'd be like, I'm like, you might just have to kill me. I'm like, I don't, like, I think Persona 5 soundtrack is insanely, like, I fucking love this music. It's so good.
Yeah, I think you can be like me, like, not even really into the game, but you can listen to this and be like, this is great.
Yeah, but yeah, Xenoblade 2 has, like, an absolute, like, ridiculous amount of variety to it. I mean, it's the same thing, like as much as I think Xenogears, the game, is a fucking just god awful slog of a game. It has got one of the most wonderful fucking soundtracks ever made. Like,
yeah,
and it still holds up to this day. Like, and it's like, it's the kind of soundtrack that's so fucking good for such a piece of shit game. It literally carries the entire game on its back, you know. And you'll play the game and you'll hear the music, and despite you not even liking the game, you feel nostalgic for it, even though it's like this game, even though this game fucking sucks.
Yeah. And I don't even really felt like, oh, this, like, with Persona 5, from what I played, I'm like, it's not like this thing where oh my god, like, I haven't done anything, like, I haven't, like, touched the game in, like, hours. Like, I went to, like, a town, and it was just, like, slow moving text you couldn't skip that just went on and on and on and on and on. Like, I didn't even think this game was necessarily that poorly paced. It was just kind of like, I hated the fact that what I'm doing isn't that exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because
and that's definitely, I mean, like, you mean like living the Japanese life.
Yeah, because like a lot of the quote unquote drama or whatever is about, like, okay, you know, whatever problem this person's having or that person's having, and, you know, that's all high school bullshit. And that's where I kind of get lost a little bit, just because, like, I have this weird sort of, like, you know, when, like, a 4-year-old is, like, having a fucking fit because, like, it's the end of the world because they dropped their ice cream or something, or they didn't get a toy they wanted, and you're like, this is so irrelevant to the rest of your fucking life. And I feel that way a lot about teenagers too, and even, like, looking back at myself, and I cringe when I think about my own self, my own things I said and did when I was, like, a teenager, and I'll be like, oh, like, this shit is so not important. And I see people following in the same, like, here's a really weeby thing. Like, I remember being a weeb and being like, you know, how being genuinely upset at how butchered anime was when they released it in North America, and how it was just like people were just like careless butchers chopping up anime and putting, you know, when it got put on Fox or Toonami or WB or whatever. And now I just sit there and think about, like, wow, that was so unimportant. Who fucking cares? Like, if you want to watch the real thing, you can find it. There's an internet.
Yeah.
You know, like, this shit isn't important. You know, like...
Oh, for sure. And that's a fair fucking point, actually. Like, it's true. Like, I mean, we all will, like, if you're an adult, you're going to look back at most of, like, the things that stress you out in high school or younger before that, and it's going to be like, God, I wish I didn't stress so much about this. It really didn't fucking matter, right? And that's, like, I could definitely see that, like, seeing different aspects and, like what's, so I'm curious, based on that, like, so from the game here, so you're saying, like, the things with Kamoshida, you feel like that, like, didn't really matter, didn't hold, like, a big significance, so, like, you didn't feel like a big investment in it, basically?
I mean, I really don't want to keep linking it back, but I'm like, I just feel like I just kind of, like, fucking, like, almost like I have to, where it's like, okay, like, what, like a dramatic arc a character goes through in this is, like,
You're from shooting.
nothing compared to like say a character like Jin has to go through. Where it's like,
Where he just gets fucked up in the worst way possible.
yeah, and it's like, fuck. But it's like, and then, but there's, the thing is that's nice about that game is like, you can see like a really good real world connection too, where it's just like say for Jin's example, you know, he basically got in the crossfires of basically a crusade, like you know, which is like that. Boy, does that happen in real life or whatever. And I'm sure there's lots of similarities to like how I have to imagine for real, like, okay, like it is a real and it is a serious thing for like say the gym coach being you know a creeper, and that's a terrible thing, and that needs to get called out for it. Absolutely. I don't want to belittle that aspect of it. I mean, kind of like more like the main characters where whatever their problems are, like I forget which Persona, if it was 4 or 5, there's like a character who's supposed to inherit their parents' shop, right? Like
that was 4, I believe. I think it was
yeah.
just,
So like one of the characters, their big thing was just like the responsibility of inheriting their family business and running it, and I'm like, that sounds important when you're a teenager, but when you get an adult, you kind of realize like that's like you either let the family business chain you down, or you just basically say forget it kind of thing. It's like, and that's kind of compelling. It's like it's kind of cool, but I'm like, it's also like, okay, yeah, but if you don't want it, just sell it or fucking bow out about it. Like, you know, we live in a day and age where even monarchies' own children are like, I'm leaving the monarch, bye. like, you know, I don't want to deal with this kind of thing. Like, if people, you know, if people don't want to do it or whatever, it's like, they don't have to do it. And I can't even really recall necessarily what was going on with, like, the blonde chick or the other blonde guy. Like, I don't know what their personal hang-ups were throughout the game. But it kind of is at that general sort of, like, slice of life thing where it's like, okay, it is important, you know, when you're 16 years old or whatever. But you also know, like, if you've lived beyond 25, you're also like, wow, that's also really not that big a deal, or that's very unimportant.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, yeah, Persona 4 and 5 are definitely different. I mean, actually, well, every Persona is very different in like their general tone. Persona 4 is definitely the more like, I would say out of all of them, probably the lightest one in some ways, because it almost comes across like you get your team together, like your Scooby-Doo investigation team, and you're like trying to solve murders around town.
Should be this cool.
3 is Three is like the darkest one in that it like kind of ties into. It's much closer to even what like it almost feels like it's still holding on to some of the Shin Megami Tensei aspects of it, in that it's like how it affects the world around them, but still focusing on the characters. And the Persona 5 is all about like we are fighting the system, we are fighting this like like unjust shitty adults.
Yeah, because like 4 is kind of you're trying to find like a killer in a small town in the countryside or whatever. You know, in this one it's more of like a societal thing where it's like, okay, we're trying to take down the corrupt politicians or whatever. But I didn't get that far in necessarily. You know, where it's did
you get to the blue-haired guy?
I do not believe so. No.
Okay. So you didn't even get to that's.
It was when they were starting up the next whatever like Mind Palace thing you were gonna set up for the next character.
Okay. Yeah. So that'd be the artist guy.
Maybe I did. But I was like, basically, I came to this point where I'm like, okay. I did I think it's Kimoshida's his name. Like I did it, and I'm like, okay, is this? And then when they're setting up for the next character, I'm like, is this the loop? Is this the loop of the game? And they're like, yeah, that's the loop. And I'm like, And that was where I was just kind of like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to like go necessarily through that again. But it's not so much about me. But like, I'm actually curious to hear like, okay, like what is it about how Persona 5 or any of the Personas really like necessarily like what made it exciting? Like I guess a better way to say is what is like I had this moment in Chrono Trigger when you get to the future and you have a whole little thing where you're trying to you try to get the food supplies whatever, And then there's a part you have to go across the wastelands, and you have to race like Johnny 5 or whatever, Johnny Robo.
Yeah.
And you do this mode 7 race, whatever, and then like you beat him, and it plays like the crazy, amazing Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross fanfare. You know, and the camera does like the whole pan around, and I just sort of realized like, holy shit, I'm playing one of the greatest fucking games ever made. Like I've done this thing where like I went into the like the medieval Renaissance past. I stopped this coup plan from these monsters. I saved I saved Marl's descendant, or ancestor from getting killed, and preventing her from not being born. A little Back to the Future a bit. I did all that, and then like I went to the far future, and then like you go to like the ancient, like super ancient past and stuff like that. And I was just kind of like at this moment where I'm just like, this is just fucking incredible. There's just like finally some good fucking food.
Yeah.
Where it's just like I'm just realizing like this game's insane. This game is fucking incredible. Like I know I'm playing an all-time great. Like it's this like I was already intrigued. I was already in, but then I was like the moment where I'm like this is the shit.
Right.
I'm like where is that point in Persona, like, or more specifically, what is that point where it's like you realize, oh this is the shit?
Where's the point in Persona 5?
Yeah, or what is it in Persona in general? It's like that moment where you go, oh, this is the shit. This is why I'm playing this game 100 hours.
I'll tell you right now, the first part that gave me like goosebumps in Persona 5 was when Joker transformed for the first time. Like to be honest, when I saw trailers for this game and I saw that, because it's like, it literally, you hear a little butterfly come in that like you're like because the whole game up to that point is literally like, oh, shitty adult is gonna beat you again. You're stuck in the system. You have, and then basically hear this otherworldly voice tell you that you have the cards so stacked against you, you literally have like no chance of fucking winning. Do you still want to fight back? And you can choose yes or no. Is it choose yes? And then his mask shows up, and he's like, where's this come from? What the fuck is this? Fucking rips it off. His face starts bleeding. Gets this crazy demon smile. Engulfs himself in fucking flames. And then, I mean, every awakening in this game to me is like the coolest fucking shit ever. It's easily some of the, I fucking love it. I love it every time. And to me, it's actually like, it's way better than even I feel like the moments from Persona 3 and 4 where people like get similar things, especially with 4, where everyone, like 4 kind of plays that a very similar way. And it is impactful where people like essentially realize that, you are a part of B, and then they acknowledge that and they get their persona and stuff. Here it's like a fucking Sentai or something, like they just fucking like they finally listen to their other self, and then they're like, fuck it, and like they always knew that they had this fucking demon power, and they rip their mask off and fucking go up in flames, and then there's a giant pirate man behind me now, surfing on a fucking ship, and it's so like, I love those moments in this game, and they're always so they always crescendo with this wonderful music in the back that just tells me like, oh my god. And then they jump in your team. They always play the same song, dun, 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 dun. And then you get to try them out for the first time in a fight and like see what their crazy abilities are. It's fucking great, man. And it like, those are the moments in this game that get me hyped. But I mean, even aside from that, like, what else than beyond that is like, it was definitely, and this is again something that is, this game benefits a lot from, and it was a huge step up in this game over the last ones, and that is the palaces themselves. Because in the previous games, 3 and 4, the dungeons were essentially like what Mementos is in this game, where they're just procedurally generated hallways.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah, I remember
literally
that in 4. Yeah, I was like, wow, this is not a good-looking game for like the last PS2 game that came out on the system.
No, they were basic as fuck. Like, it literally, the dungeons were not. They weren't even dungeons. They were literally hallways with some treasure chests thrown in there and some enemies. It was all about the fighting and not about actually like any kind of like puzzles or anything in the world generally. And then they did something brilliant here where they essentially separated that. Like, you still do get like sections of the game that are the procedurally generated, and that's mementos. You go down there and it's like you just kind of run around and go into fights and stuff. But the palaces are actually man-made, handcrafted, designed areas with their own puzzles and really cool stealth sections, and expansive ways to explore. And it's like, I think they're awesome. Like, it's easily the thing to me that I go, like, what is the biggest thing that they improved upon in this game, aside from just the style of the game from the previous ones? And I say it's the fucking palaces.
Yeah, the mind palaces being actually designed.
Yeah, and the fact that it reflects the heart of the person too, or like art, like also style wise and like enemy wise, and each one has its own like theme of puzzle too that like carries out throughout the entirety of it. It's really cool. And how do they reflect it in a way that is, again, the whole premise of the palace too is it plays like a heist, right? Like you're essentially, you find where their treasure is, you try to figure out a way to get in there and to steal it, and then it comes into this great culmination. Again, another moment that is like, holy shit, this fucking game, bro, where they start playing the dun 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 dun, and you fucking just break it in there. Oh, it gets this crazy epic break in where you gotta go in, you set for the ceiling, gotta avoid all these traps. Oh god, gotta get the treasure. Oh motherfucker, here comes the big shadow guy transforming into some crazy new form that usually has a gimmick of some kind that you have to figure out in the boss fight. And there's a couple of boss fights in the game that are a little annoying, that are a little like okay, maybe they went a little too far, at least in the original. I remember there's like, I think there's like 2 where I was like, but for the most part, they were like, I think they're amazingly designed and just super fucking fun. But yeah, like to me, those moments of like outside, and that's, again, that is also what makes it so special too, is the fact that, yeah, part of that time is spent just running around Japan. And if that's not something that, if that just seems kind of dull, right? Like, it is, I wouldn't say it's dull, because I like it, because I find it, you know, exotic and interesting, getting this slice of life in this other country. But it is more normal, right? To then jump from that per setting to then hop into these crazy dungeons, like, it is like that change, that juxtaposition, that sort of like transitions you from the normal to the extraordinary, like that, is it makes it more special than it would be than if it was just like always that, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, do you remember, did you ever play Saints Row 4?
Yes, I beat it.
Yeah. Were you so that game, like, I have a little bit of like mixed feelings on that game, because like I think it's fun for like the first couple of hours, and then because essentially it's just, you're like basically a god in that game. You just can like run around and like leap 100 feet, like 100 feet in the air, and you have like superpowers, do crazy shit. And at first you're like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy. Oh my god, I'm like leaping around like you're the goddamn Hulk, you know, just like fuck, like. And then like a few hours in, you start to realize it starts to, like, the magic of that goes away, and then eventually it just starts to feel like whatever, right?
Yeah, and that's my problem with open world games in general, is that they're always fun for the first half hour, and then once you've gotten past that, like once the magic of the sort of like do whatever you want wears off, I lose interest in them. And I beat Saints Row 4, and the thing that got me through Saints Row 4 was the humor, and sort of like they had like specific missions where it was like, okay, here's a Metal Gear level, you know, here's a level that's like a parody of this video game or that video game.
Yeah, the Mass Effect, the Mass Effect, like I can't remember if that was 3 or 4. The Mass Effect, like dating thing, and your guy comes to, he's like, hey, you wanna fuck? And she like grabs you by the nape of your neck and throws you down. She's like, come here, bitch. Fucking throws you on the ground. Yeah.
Exactly. So like that was what was getting me through Saints Row 4, was just sort of like the variety, because like The biggest problem with that game is just like you're a superhero, and like to me it's like it's a great example of, for me, I'm like, this is why you can't have an open world, unrestricted power Superman game.
Yeah,
Like Superman without power restrictions in complete open world freedom, he's you're gonna get bored in an hour or less, probably less.
Yeah, that 100% agree. That is like, it's like, it seems incredible at first, but if there's not like enough nuance to it, like I would almost say that Spider-Man, like the Spider-Man game for the PS4, right? Like I think got around a lot of that because some of the mechanics, especially if it's web swinging, was so like well done, so executed so exceptionally well that you just never got tired of swinging through the fucking city, you know? Because it's just so like, fucking hell, what? Like, you know, and then you like come flying in and nail some dude in the face, and it's like they managed to make it like, they managed to give it some like variety and to feel like I mean, it makes you feel like Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas like Saints Row 4 or something was, the magic wore off really fucking fast, because after a while the mechanics just kind of fall apart in terms of just like, oh yeah, okay, this is just what I do, and it doesn't really change a whole lot throughout the game. But anyway, so my point with Persona 5 is that because you have that one side of the game that is essentially the normal Japanese slice of life sim, and then the other part that is the crazy fantastical worlds and jumping to mines, is it makes those moments even more special and stand out.
Yeah,
more to me, you know?
I think it goes you're saying here too, because what it is to me, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of getting it, because like you're saying, like it's like Gendy, like, you know how Gendy, you ever watch Gendy Tartakovsky?
Oh yeah, dude, fucking goat.
The man is just like a master of tension building, where it's just kind of like,
oh yes, he is.
It's just squeezing you with like mundane, almost like like pressuring it, like and then you get like this explosion at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
where it's like build up to just So
he's probably one of the few like anime, like he's an American. Well, no, he is a Western animator, right? Right.
So he was born in Russia, but he moved to America, and he's worked most of his adult life in America as an American animator.
So like, he is probably one of the few American animators that I'm like this guy actually like truly gets pacing generally like really fucking well.
Yeah.
Like we're like, yeah, he's not afraid to just have a character just like be in a moment and stand there with silence and just set to build the mood. Whereas where most other Western animators just like go. Yeah, I 100% agree. So
so I think I'm kind of getting it a little bit more. Where like, yeah, like as you said, like the Mind Palace stuff and like the more like fantastical elements are accentuated higher in Persona because of the mundaneness of the rest of the game, where it's like when you're not in this Mind Palace, not in this whatever, like these moments, like you're just a high schooler in the real ass world, living a real ass life.
Yeah, and on the same flip side too, actually, like when those like palaces too, like maybe after a while you're like, all right, like you're maybe too much, like an overload of like, because it is like, it's just such a crazy stylistic game that it could just maybe after a while like your brain starts to fucking melt, you know? It's like going then back to like going back home to your, okay, I got my homework stuff to do, I've got my skills to build, I've got like, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. And generally what you're doing when you're hanging out with your friends, you're not like doing anything too crazy. They're just like, well, here's what's going on in my life, and this is some problem that, you know, maybe you can help me with, you know? And I think that's kind of nice. It's almost like a break then from the other thing, you know? It's like two games in one in a lot of ways. That's always how the Persona games sort of kind of felt.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the point. Like, there's two lives, like two worlds. Like everything is sort of like, you know, like a flip of, you know, two sides to every coin kind of thing.
What is this thing? You're not soldiers.
The one thing I will say that's weird about Persona 4 and 5, I don't know if it has this problem in 3 at all. There is some and I hate the term cartoonish because people like seem to say, oh, anything that's drawn is cartoonish, or like cartoons can be taken seriously. There's a teddy bear in 4, and then there's this cat thing in 5, and they just have the most cartoonish, and I mean like Cartoon Network age, like boys ages 6 to 11 target audience, like voice and dialogue and expressions and character design, like, and it's so weird to me because this is an M-rated game. It's an M-rated franchise with a lot of dark places and shit. And it's so weird how like they just have these mascot characters. Like this thing fell out of a fucking Disney movie, you know, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that one always kind of struck me as a little bit odd, or like it's not a I wouldn't say it's a problem, but I always thought it was something I noticed from like they have really cartoonish like voices, dialogue. Like it's like it feels like a character from something completely different. Like it feels like Super Lucky's Tail is now in a Persona game for some reason.
Right. Yeah, it's like I'm already looking in the chat here, and people are already like Morgana's the fucking worst. Teddy is trash compared to Morgana, and it's like people just don't agree. Yeah, you truly either love these characters or you fucking hate them. I like them. I actually ended up liking them both. Like I'd say actually the one that I was the most unsure about was Teddy, the little teddy bear, the teddy bear like thing from 4. But I'm actually liking him, and I'm like, I like this little, just like he's very kind of endearing. Morgana is a little more abrasive, but I think part of what makes Morgana like funnier and work a bit better is that he sits in your bag all day. It's just like a regular cat. And I don't know, something about that I do kind of find funny. And like, I mean, yeah, it is cartoonish and kind of like Looney Tunes. It is 100%, yeah, like the mascot of the game, and that is 100% what they're thinking when they design these characters. Like, this is like the crazy, kooky, cartoony, otherworldly character that is the face of this game, you know, aside from just like the Phantom Thieves.
Yeah, like, and I guess my only real issue is with these in every movie I see them in is like this thing was designed to sell a toy, to sell a keychain. We have no other fucking there was no other reason to have this thing other than to sell a keychain. We needed keychains.
True, though, to be fair, this entire game could be said that. I mean, every element of, honestly, all of these Persona games is designed to sell. I mean, the demons and Personas themselves are literally like look at Jack Frost, right?
Yeah, he was Atlas's mascot for years. I never saw any Chariot plushies, or Mara the Chariot, or whatever.
Where's our Mara plushie? Come on, what the fuck?
Someone would enjoy it.
Yeah. He becomes erect when he gets excited. I would probably get that, actually. If they actually Atlas had the literal gall to be like, here we go, we did it, fucking Mara plushie, I'd be like, dude, I'll fucking buy that. That's it. I just to be like, you need to make shit like this more often. There's a Mara statue. I figured there'd probably be a statue. But I want a plushie. Like, I want a big dick plushie. Big dick on wheel plushie.
And like, anytime a guest comes up, what is that? You're like, I'm not explaining.
No, you have to just figure that out yourself.
So yeah, I think that's probably the thing I was looking for most, though, was sort of like the tension, the buildup of the tension, where it's like it is so mundane, so that when the really crazy shit happens, it hits harder than if it was always fantastical.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which you can kind of get, and I can see that where it's like, if something is like turned up to 11 all the time, you kind of like, your brain just becomes numb to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't have a good example to use other than like, it's generally how I, without having watched it, so it's a fairly, probably not a good thing for me to say, but like Studio Trigger anime, where it's like some of it's turned up to 11 all the fucking time. Yeah,
like a Kill la Kill or something, where like most of the time is always like just ass and titties in your face. At the point.
Strike at an enemy's
Yeah,
Where it's
or
like-
just like they're constantly doing some fucking insane animation, where it's just kind of like
Remember
your brain just starts
Yeah,
to
yeah.
shut off after a while because like you just can't follow, or even if you are following it, it's just kind of like
Let's hurry and get
like your brain goes to mush from so much action or so much crazy shit.
Right. Yeah. No, I got you. So that's definitely a big part of it. I mean, that definitely helps a bit. Now I guess if in terms of like stakes, I guess maybe like as in like world-ending or world-affecting stakes, or necessarily things that you would find something to be invested in, I guess, right? And I think a lot of the investment in these games, when it doesn't come to the cosmic world-changing stuff, that usually happens. It's usually permeates the game, but isn't necessarily a focus until towards the end of the game when you realize, oh, it's been there in your whole face the whole time. You didn't realize it. The big like investment becomes really the relationships of these characters and the fact that they care, right? Like for An, her best friend was assaulted by Kamoshida, and then she tries to kill herself, right? And that like is like, and you knew the girl, you actually met the girl, and she's like really nice, but she seems really fucked up for some reason. You're not really sure what's going on, and then like she like leaps out a window, and you're like, holy fuck, what the shit? And when you realize it's Kamoshida, then you realize Kamoshida also has like he's such a like powerhouse at the school that everyone respects him. No one's gonna believe you. You can't really do anything about it, and it's like you feel helpless. You feel like fuck, like what the fuck, dude? This is some bullshit. Like you can't help but feel like, yeah, this motherfucker. Someone needs to take this guy down a peg.
If only they had Twitter.
Yeah, I know, right? If only social media existed.
Like, could you imagine if like something like that like happened in a high school here, and then all the friends go out, we immediately just go on Twitter and be like, this guy did this, boom, 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 and like all the cops are ignoring it or whatever, right? And then it's like that's gonna get national attention probably real effing quick. So I'm just kind of like, you got to do this whole mind palace thing on this guy and like get him to turn himself in, and I'm like, or you could all just have a bunch of students like walk out and then like make a big deal of it, and then trust me, if there's anything a school district hates more than anything, it's press.
It's true. It's
Call the
do
press
at least,
in.
I will say, at least in the game, they do. I mean, I think with you stand back and look in like our current landscape, it's like getting someone canceled for shit like that is not like it seems much easier and like to do than. But the way they set up in the game, they do make it seem like hopeless, right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I'm not going to tell you that every single one of the execution in some of these is the best, though. Like I do think there are some that aren't handled like the best, and everyone has like ones that they consider their favorites and ones that they consider to be the weakest. Similarly, some characters get introductions in this game that aren't the best. Like for example, the character that I ended up picking to be like my waifu in the game was her name was Haru, and she really gets kind of the short end of the stick in the game, and how she's brought into the story and how like they go into her like actual like the themes for her character, like they get kind of glossed over to the point that hilariously enough they end up actually helping fix a lot of it in the game, the Persona 5 Strikers game, which is an actual like it's a Mutsuo game that is actually an actual sequel to Persona 5.
Yeah, from what I understand, it is like a full-on sequel.
Yeah, and I didn't play for the longest time because I really don't like Mutsuo games. Like I get super fucking bored from them. Hilarious stuff. It really ended up being more like just an action RPG than like a Mutsuo game. Like there is waves and enemies, but I ended up liking the game a lot more than I thought I would. But they did a smart thing in that game where they ended up, in addition to some of the new characters they introduced, they actually ended up basically taking characters that were previously underutilized and didn't give enough attention to the previous game, like Haru, and they give it to her there. So that was nice. But like I said, like that's another one of the critiques I have against Persona 5 is that not all elements hit. There are some moments that I'm like, this is stupid. Like this is really dumb. There's like, for example, a point in the game where where Ryuji, the blonde hair guy, that's like your psychic buddy, and the cat Morgana get in this huge fight, and it's like really prolonged and goes on for way too long, and like everybody in the games, or everybody who plays this game always agrees, they're like, this part's really dumb and it feels really forced and it's kind of stupid, and it like kind of destroys the pace of the game, and it's like, it's always like, people consider that to be like one of the low points of the game. And again, maybe that gets fixed in Royale, maybe it does, but I remember like when I was let's playing the game, and I got to that point, I mean, even before I got too far into it, I remember people in the comments going, oh, here we go, time for the worst part of the game. And then I go through and I'm like, yeah, this part's really stupid. Like,
we always gotta have our filler moment, right?
Yeah, like, and that's why I'm not gonna tell you like, oh, I think this game's is fucking perfect. No, it has got its fucking flaws for absolute certain. There's certain parts of the game just are really dumb. But it hits so right, especially as, again, someone who just played and really loved the previous games. This really is like how they managed to just one up the previous games in so many ways. And and the other thing too, and I mean, yeah, it's a turn-based battle system, and you're either gonna like it or not. But
yeah, I don't really think that's sort of like a judge. You can really make a judgment on that or not. It's like you either enjoy it or you don't. I do say, to my defense, I was like, I think to me the most interesting part in the game was the fact that you could bribe and talk to the demons. And I was like, this is kind of really interesting. I thought, wow, this is like, because like most turn-based tries to have their own little spin or twist on it somewhere. And I was like, this is actually kind of funny and interesting, because you're not like catching them, or like you chip them down to a weakened state and throw a Pokeball, you know, or whatever. Like it's literally like talk to them, and then they have like a dialogue tree, and you have to basically convince them, like L.A. Noire or something.
Yeah, so that the funny thing is, and that this is actually something that it did originate from the Shin Megami Tensei series. Like, this is something that I think almost all of their games do. And that was something they ended up bringing back for Persona 5. I think you could do it in Persona 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 did not have that, and then they brought it back in 5. And yeah, it's funny. It does get a little frustrating, because I remember there's some Personas I remember I'm like, what the fuck does it want me to fucking say? Like, I remember there's this one like weird little onion enemy. Like, he looks like he has like a weird shriveled onion head and like a weird bird body. And I fucking held that little bastard up like, like fucking 10 times, 10 separate fights, and was like, and he'd like say something, and I'm like, all right, you just gotta say this other thing, the thing that matches based on what you're interpreting his mood to be like. You have to say this thing, which is this kind of mood, and like every fucking time I kept getting it wrong. I'm like, what do you want from me, you stupid bird? Royal gives you hints on dialogue for demons. Oh, that's kind of nice. Yeah, because I mean, it is fun. Like, I do like it. And again, that is definitely not a Persona thing though. That was Shin Megami Tensei did that. And technically, I would even probably argue Shin Megami Tensei probably does it better. So if you actually like that, you actually might want to try a Shin Megami Tensei game. Honestly.
I mean, are they games that have, you know, a variety of locales? Is there a nice big, you know, I don't know, like...
No, yeah, you know, I don't know about that, actually. Yeah, the problem with most Shin Megami Tensei games is most of them are just really hard dungeon crawlers.
Yeah.
Shin Megami Tensei 5, maybe, I don't know about 5. You'd have to, you guys chatting might know better in that regard.
I do think it is shocking how fast that game like died, or like it really just came and went. It was in development forever, finally resurfaced, and I thought, okay, it's definitely going to get some pull from the Persona crowd now. You know, it's gonna pay back, right? No, nobody cared.
No, it didn't break out of its niche group. It really didn't. The thing is, Persona has sort of gotten to the point now where it actually, because Persona used to be the exact same thing. It was in a very niche kind of group for like 3 and I'd say 4 until probably Golden, right?
Yeah, there was
Golden
like,
is when it started to break out of it, and then 5 like really broke out into mainstream.
So here's a funny story going way back, many years now. This was going back about 10 years or so now.
Okay.
At an anime convention in NorCal, me and Mike from Easy Allies, we hosted a panel about what's wrong with Square Enix. We used to do these fun parody panels about what's wrong. We take a big company, Nintendo. We did one on Nintendo, Capcom, Square Enix at the time. What's wrong with Nintendo, kind of thing. And it was a bit of a clickbaity thing just to get people to come into the panel. And because the thing is, we'd always be like, look, we love these companies, but you know, I remember 10 years ago, Mike was saying, I was basically in the death throes of my despair era of JRPGs, where I was just kind of like, the JRPG has fallen. Like there's no hope for this. There's no
saving it.
There's no saving it. And I remember he going like, there is, I have to. He's like, and his whole thing is he played the intro to Persona 4 Golden as sort of like, hey, this is JRPG doing it well. And I can't remember at the time. I think I did, because I barely, maybe the Japanese version of Xenoblade 1 was out, and I was like, this is like our only hope, guys, and it doesn't even look like Nintendo wants to bring it out.
Yeah.
But it hadn't really taken off or anything yet. But so I remember he was saying that Persona 4 is like, it was basically his savior for the genre back during the 360 PS3 era, when it just really took a dump, Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting to me that thinking back on that now, where it's like, 4 was around the time where I started hearing about it, and I didn't really know much about it. And I remember he played the intro of Persona 4 Gold, and I looked at it and went like, what the fuck is this? Because it was like that highly stylized anime intro opening with just like the J-pop song and like the really like characters riding around on scooters, and whatever. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I hadn't seen that video before the panel. Like, we'd rehearsed the panel, but not with the video. And I remember looking at it and going like, this is this your king?
This is what you have for me.
But
you're not making me feel any better.
But I remember the audience there, because that's the hardest of the hardcore in an anime convention. They were eating it up. They were loving it. Like, yo, yeah, Persona 4 is so fucking good. And I'm like, I think Persona might be coming in and stealing Final Fantasy's lunch.
It kind of did in a lot of ways.
It kind of did. But Final Fantasy bounced back, I would say too. But yeah, I remember being there and thinking that one, I didn't know what he was talking about. I see the video, I'm like, the fuck is this? And then everyone's eating it up, and it's kind of been for 10 years. I've just kind of been like, what do you fucking see in this? But again, I think a lot of that just comes from my sort of history with the genre, which was my favorites are Chrono Trigger, Grandia, and Skies of Arcadia, and these games couldn't be further from that.
Those are fucking. I've never actually played Skies of Arcadia, so I don't like.
Well, after Xenoblade X.
No, I don't want to play Xenoblade X.
You might actually enjoy Xenoblade X. Circling back around though, I think obviously it's what a lot of people say about Persona in general, is just people are really drawn in by these characters. And it's not like they don't do anything with these characters. Like I said before, it's... I'm like, you're high schools, I don't care about your problems necessarily. But there is...
Probably don't know about it, but there's some rumors about him.
Earnesty, right?
Yeah.
And it's what because what Andrew asked me, about what is the one thing in Summarized you know, why do you enjoy, say, Blade so much? I'm like, sincerity. Is there's a sincerity in the game they're making here, and I'm gonna guess that's a
really good that's a really goddamn good description, actually. Sincerity, you're right, the dead does have that.
Drag you out here like this. That's all
Yeah, in I kind of use that as generals, like for Blade and for kind of JRPG versus maybe some. And I don't want to say they're insincere when they make the games at all or whatever, but it's like
Don't ignore me, alright?
there's a really feeling like they really truly believe in the story they're telling, the themes they're telling, you know, and it's gotta be. I'm gonna guess it's probably true for this game. Like the themes of Persona 4 and Persona 5 or whatever, you gotta believe when you're playing it, they're sincere in the story they're telling, and they really believe in the message they're giving. There's no fucking message, to my knowledge, in any Elder Scrolls or Dragon Age or what
Have you heard of the High Elves?
or even Mass Effect. I'm not really sure what that was, you know, because I saw all 3 endings.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not really sure what they were even trying to say by the end of this game. It was more just kind of like, shit happens. But yeah, like I guess like I've always known there's the sincerity part of it. I was just trying to, you know, for me it was always just, I'm just trying to figure out what is the thing that hooks people so hard? Like what is it that makes them fall so hard in love with this? Because it's like, I feel like if there was a game that was about just sort of American high school life, you know, or whatever, I don't think there would be that much interest. Like, neither in Japan or in America. Like,
Japan, maybe. Like, I don't know. It kind of depends. I don't really know how Japan sees, like... I mean, I imagine they probably see a lot of our culture as exotic in their own way. I mean, I remember... I mean, to be fair, like... white people are kind of exotic, you know, to them, because, like, I remember I had
they have a what they call like the Yankee, they call it the sort of like the fascination with the Yankee culture or whatever, like, you know, motorcycle riding, you know, diners, burgers, you know, open road, Route 66 style. There's a bit of a fascination there with that, just like, what is this lifestyle?
Yeah, for sure. I remember I had a history teacher in college, and his wife was Chinese, but he was this tall white guy. And he talked about how whenever he goes to visit like her family, and he always goes like he always will get like pulled over just like random people who want to take pictures with him, just because he's so like to them he's like just like this strange exotic man, and really just a very normal looking guy. He's like, but it's like to them it's like, and he's like I take so many freaking pictures with people like who just like just think I look just so like different from it because he's tall and he's white. And I'm like, and I think it's just something that, like, I think they probably would get it would be a different reason though, right? Different reason than I think what is given now for Persona, where it's sort of like what we feel, where the reason I like it isn't even necessarily the high school setting. It's the fact that I'm living in Japan. That's to me is why it's so interesting. And I think it's like that for a lot of other adults too. I don't even know if it's necessarily the like, oh, fucking high school. It's like, it's the fact that you're in Japan and you're getting this look at this other culture, and like, this is not how my high school life was. No way. Like, you know, then again, and then also how those lifestyle elements play into the RPG elements. What else about the game specifically like irked you? Was like, you're like, oh man, fuck this is some bullshit, or something that like maybe I could sort of like
I think the real irking was just the fact that it didn't feel we've already kind of talked about it, but like it kind of flows one into the other of like, I don't feel like you go anywhere, I don't feel like you do anything like important, like and just sort of like, it really boils down to, like, I don't want to do a video game where I'm doing chores. I don't want to do a video game where I have restrictions. I'm alive in the real world. I have nothing but, chores, restrictions, what have you.
Yeah.
And more personally, it was just kind of like, it's not even really so much that anything looks bad in the game, more or less, but it was just kind of like, I want to play a video game to see shit. I wish to be somewhere I wish I could be. Like, I want to be living it. And this is kind of funny because, like, that's literally what you kind of just said. Is like, it's great because I can live this vicarious life as this person living in Japan. And for me, it's like, I absolutely would be interested in that too, but there's just too many restrictions. There's too many things that sort of kind of like weigh you down, and like, you menu manage, you time manage, you life, you friend meter manage. Like, just I don't want to manage any of this shit. I just want to run around, and if I see a dinosaur, I'll go fucking like flip it on its head, and and then call the giant robot in space to blast it with a laser. I mean, like,
yeah,
like to me, one of the greatest things to do is like, hey, did you know if you go up into this log, you'll find this one secret passage, and it goes down to this spot where you slide down the water, and it'll fly you out into that one stump in the middle of the big lake, and there's a diving thing in there, and that'll take you to this grand view, like way up over on the neck of this giant. Did you know you could do that? Like, what? Like,
yeah,
like discovering that stuff.
Is there any parting words? I mean, I don't know. I know I'm not, like I said, I wasn't really playing to, like, try to convince you or something, but I mean, I guess do you sort of understand at least maybe a little better why people like Persona some?
I think what I'm getting to is that, and the thing that I think that I didn't quite have before was the tension, the build up, and the sort of like the flipping of the coin, where it's like normalcy to abnormality, where it's like, you play a game that's very much rooted and grounded in reality, and then when the moment hits where, like, all of a sudden the fantastical bursts forth, explodes forth, it hits harder and has more impact. So I'm like, okay,
okay,
I think I get that a little bit more there. I still don't want to play as a fucking high schooler.
I feel you. I got you. All right, man. Thank you for having me on. It was fun to talk about. So.
Yeah, and. Well, I'll have to do this with some other stuff some other time if people like it. So
yeah,
sure. that is how you sell me. That is a first episode on Sell Me on Something.